Good afternoon, welcome back to the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk. It is Shotgun Saturday. Weekly Steelchair, of course, and of course my explosive yet entertaining co-host Ailey is with me. Another show, not a particularly interesting show if it's for a WWE fan.
All right, I was like, come on, that is not the way you sell a show. Not a particularly interesting.
It's not particularly interesting if you're a WWE fan, because we're not going to be realistically talking about WWE today. We are going to be, if you're just a pro wrestling fan in general, we are going to be talking about, I think the best way to describe it is an enigma. Like, it's certainly an enigma within wrestling, with how he conducts himself, how he's travelled within the sport, how he's developed his gimmick, where he is now, and of course, recent shoot interviews and comments resurfacing, of course, is an interesting one. So today's conversation is, of course, CM Punk. And if you've seen the thumbnail for today's show, then a very specific part of the title is on the thumbnail. If you haven't, I will load it once my laptop behaves itself. I will just bring it up. Come on, you little rat.
Yeah, in the meantime of that loading up, I mean, obviously we know just about everything has been said by everyone about this specific person, but it's always important when these sorts of news stories come up that they can influence the way that you see someone's past behavior.
I completely agree with you, and of course, my co-host, Ailey, every single week we are together. It's a better partnership than Keogh versus Van Nistelrooy, as we know full well as rival fans. But it's great to have you with me. And most of all, how's your week going so far? How's it going?
I mean, not fantastically. You may know, you may not. I tested positive for COVID yesterday. So, in addition to the other health problems that are going on, COVID's reared its ugly head. And the worst part is I dodged it while it was all the rage, managed to escape it and avoid it. But you go to one gig on a Friday night in Edinburgh and all of a sudden, a week later, testing positive. So, but other than that, just trying to look at it the best way that I can. And obviously, looking forward to today's show. How are you?
Yeah, more or less the same. I've never once caught it, so I'm okay. I'm fighting fit, I'm healthy, I'm relaxed, and buzzing to talk about the show. It's one that we wanted to do, and of course, today's thumbnail, if you haven't seen it, is here on screen when it comes up. Come on, show for me. When it wants to. Punk Division. Punk Division. Very nice edit by myself, of course. I just wanted to point that for the people watching. That is my craftsmanship. But, of course, the key point of it is Punk Division.
Yeah.
The why Punk Division? Well, I'm going to give my co-star. Well, literally is my co-star, because we're all equals. And also my co-host, Ailey. I'm going to give the full reign on this one to you.
Oh, right,
Division.
okay.
Why have we gone with Punk
Well,
Division?
Yeah, so for people who haven't heard, and you'd be living under a medium-sized rock. I'm not saying it's impossible for you to miss the story, but CM Punk's been a naughty boy, and he's been causing some problems backstage. There's dissension off the back of what he said about Hangman Page on this week's episode of Dynamite, which essentially went against the wishes of the company and wasn't actually cleared with Hangman either. I think Punk tried to clear it with Hangman. Hangman said, don't do that. Punk did it anyway, or something like that. It comes off the back of, obviously Hangman doesn't like the way that his title reign went in general for his character or for how it made him look. But CM Punk sort of piled that on because apparently reports coming out now, CM Punk refused to lose to Hangman Page. And therefore, there are thoughts that is in fact what's triggered the title change and CM Punk being the AEW champion. Was it really the plan? What do you think, Reese? Do you think it was always the plan to put the belt onto Punk, or do you think he backstage politicked his way to it?
I hope he hasn't politicked, but I wouldn't be surprised, because eventually at certain points in your career, we've all seen 4 million years wrestling fans. There are some that are good in the ring, both on the mic, off the mic. Eventually they decide they want to be the main guy consistently. They want to be the main spot. They don't want to lose their spot, and it causes disruption in the locker room. And I'm looking at it right now, like I'm reading an article, obviously with yourself. For anyone that hasn't looked at it, I recommend it. Just a quick plug here. It's called TGR Wrestling. And obviously TGR obviously have some articles in relation to Dave Meltzer. It has Brian Alvarez. 2 very interesting sources when it comes to pro wrestling. I think Ailey will confirm that with me as well. And there was very interesting conversations about, particularly with Punk, obviously his comments about Hangman Page. It then leads to the conversations with obviously next week's main event, obviously the unification match, Punk versus Moxley. We'll be coming to that as well, because obviously the whole show is pretty much today. The whole show is Punk classic feuds. We'll be doing a few classic feuds, some classic moments, because obviously next week is our main show. No, not the main show of the year, but it's our main show about back to WWE for the importance of Clash at the Castle.
It could be the main show for the year as we look at basically what's been put in front of us for Clash. We call it, we have everything. If you're waiting to hear things about Clash at the Castle, next week, this time, it will be the place to be. But this week, we do want to talk about the man who's making all of the headlines, which at the moment is CM Punk. And we want to talk about his present, his future, and then delve back into his past.
Absolutely. Of course, Gaz, top lad, in the chat straight away. Naughty boy, laughing my ass off. Yes.
Yes, he's been a naughty boy.
That is comment of the stream so far. We'll certainly come up for it. What's your fave feud? For me, Rock versus Triple H. Respectable. I'll always say
good show.
There's a good feuds. Mine's might surprise you. I'll bring it up later in the show. But Ailey, what's your favorite?
Yeah. When the conversation goes to feuds, you can reveal it, because obviously it must involve the man of the minute, the man of the hour. Favorite feuds. I mean, Gargano Ciampa. It's the greatest wrestling story ever told, in my opinion. Just done so perfectly, and got both guys over more than they were, and established both guys like, yep, 2 guys that we need to watch. Then Gargano obviously has disappeared now. Ciampa, they seem to finally be getting behind him now with Triple H. And I wouldn't rule out Triple H bringing Gargano back. And I'm not sure I want the feud again, because you would have that classic moment. You would have that thing. Yeah, you would have that thing where, like, could the second live up to the first? And it never could. You know, we've seen several things in the WWE like that. So if Gargano comes back, I don't want the feud again. But that first Gargano-Ciampa feud was so good that Andrade was able to use the heat Ciampa had to have his feud with Johnny Gargano. That's how natural just a heat magnet Ciampa was. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a very fair comment on that one. That's one that I actually would, to quote, testify on. But hey ho, I really do agree with that. Very interesting feud, very entertaining. We'll come back to that one later on, actually, because obviously classic feuds. We may end up bringing up one match in particular we like from our favourite feuds in detail. So, for example, Ailey's mentioned Gargano versus Ciampa. I think I can guess which match she's going to bring up. Oh, she's lost communication. Here she comes. She's coming back. There we go. So on the back of that, I was just saying there, later in the show when we do come to feuds, I'll give you full reign and full screen to discuss your favourite reigns. I'll literally switch the cameras. You'll be on full screen. I'll be on the right-hand side. And then vice versa, talk about our favourite feuds and one match in particular about why it symbolises it for you. But we are going to obviously discuss because obviously we're 10 minutes 35 seconds into the stream. Fantastic. We're flying ahead. Get your question, guys, regarding CM Punk, especially 2011 comments that resurfaced from Triple H about his personal opinions on CM Punk. To be honest, I'm all as much as I love CM Punk, I do agree with Triple H's comments completely. I think he is spot on. Guys, catch you later, mate. Look after yourself. It's been a pleasure having you around. We may as well get into the back of it, and I'm just going to ask yourself, Ailey, pro Punk against Punk, recent actions. We've already discussed Tony Khan last week. Me and yourself, we're not hypocrites when it comes to this. We do call out issues that we have regarding backstage politicking, the way things be run, especially from head honchos. But this is your main world champion. Like, real world champion is he's trying to do a Ric Flair from 1992. But yourself, what's your overall thoughts on that one?
The more I think about it in my head, the more I'm actually on CM Punk's side.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you wouldn't want me to side with someone because I think he did backstage politic it. I think he did sort of say, look, I'm not losing to him, so if you want me to fight him for the belt, I'm winning. At the end of the day, Punk's contract's bigger than Page's. Punk is more valuable to the company than Page from a pure money and spreadsheet standpoint. So they'd have to side with CM Punk. The reason I think that Punk is in the right is because someone had to grab a hold of Tony and tell him that, yeah, CM Punk is a bigger star than Hangman Page. And if that's the case, then he needs to be put over. He needs to have that title. He needs to be representing the brand more than Hangman Page's lukewarm title run. I think maybe Punk had also made the point, I could imagine Punk being this sort of person, to make the point that Bryan Danielson should have been the champion
I agree.
before Hangman Page was. And now that it was Punk's chance, Punk was like, well, I'm not going to let Tony ruin another guy. I'm not going to let Tony ruin me. So CM Punk sort of said, look, no, I'm not losing to him. And then Hangman lost. Punk's the champion, gets injured. Moxley's now the champion. Rest is history. My question, though, would be, does Punk refuse to lose to Moxley now? Is that just how he does it? Is he their Hulk Hogan?
Interesting. And for that one, since I'm going to be in the hot seat, I'll go here. All I'm going to say is I personally don't think that he is the Hulk Hogan-esque of it, but I do get your point. I'm under the same inclination as you. If I'm going into this match on Dynamite, they need to get this situation resolved booking-wise. I honestly hope to hell, in the nice way possible, that they actually book Moxley to win. I know I like CM Punk, I like Moxley, but I would rather have Moxley going over because it will. The way Punk's mindset is at right now, comments wise on his colleagues, on the way things are being run within the company, it's hard to trust someone like that as your world champion because then you've given them too much power, too much control. How much do you keep them in charge for, like as the main champion? Like because you may not, like people may not realize or not, but being world champion isn't just about being like the main person. Like you go to news events, you go to like sign-ins, like you're everywhere and you get asked all these questions. If you're in a room with CM Punk right now as AEW World Champion, he's bitching, crying and moaning, and you've got Moxley who's just coming in, doing his job, being there for the fans, being entertaining, doing the work and then leaves. Which one would you rather be with? Right now, I would rather have CM Punk losing the title to Moxley, because then it will drain some of like Punk's energy with his mindset right now. I think it does drain a lot coming from him. So for me personally, it's got to be the right sense where if he tries to backstage politic, go against him. Go against him, book Moxley till Dynamite. What about you?
Well, right. So, I mean, I understand the ambassador thing with John Moxley. The problem is he's also not the right
Sure.
person to be taking a brand forward. He's not the right person.
No, it's
He
not.
is for that fan base, but AEW don't make new fans with John Moxley as their champion. But these lapsed fans remember CM Punk. They want to see CM Punk. And the more people who are aware of CM Punk, the more chance they've got of growing that audience.
Yeah.
I think they will go with Moxley, though. I think just especially, because we know who really makes the decisions in that company. We know that Tony Khan can make decisions. We know the minute he needs advice, he doesn't get advice, he gets instruction. And we know who he gets the instruction from. The
Really?
very same friends of Hangman Adam Page. So
Yeah.
any point they're going to get to drive CM Punk away, they're going to do that now because one of their friends has been threatened by him. And there's all this backstage commotion. And CM Punk strikes me as the sort of guy who just wants to do what's best for him. And that's going to be pertinent when we talk about his past. But, John Moxley will probably go over so that AEW can say, at least, from a management standpoint, okay, that's it. We've dealt with Punk. Hangman, you can come back in and fool around with the Dark Order all you like, and CM Punk won't trouble you. But, I mean, to me, Hangman Page was AEW's version of Kofi Mania. People wanted it, and wanted it, and wanted it, and got it, and it was rubbish.
Yeah, exactly. Like he'd be in terms of obviously right now, like Pac is the equivalent. He's the Mid Atlantic champion or like the title belt, like etc. He is that upper mid card champion, and Adam Page would actually be good in that area. I don't think. Yes, he had a good world title run, but it lapsed off. It lost all its meaning. Like Kofi Kingston, he would actually be a good world champion, but it lost its edge. So I completely agree with you. I think Hangman Page ideally could be a good opposition for Pac. Like Mid Atlantic Championship, it needs to grow a bit of steam. I think Pac right now, fantastic champion. He definitely gives the title something. Like he's done it before with the cruiserweight title. He's done it with
Can Hangman challenge for that belt?
I'd assume so.
Well, I'm just thinking because there was no American in the tournament. There was a Canadian, but there was no American.
Surely they'd have to give him an opportunity. I mean, unless
the New Japan guy, maybe the New Japan guy was the American. I don't know enough about it.
But it wasn't Okada, we know that for sure.
Clark Connors, who ended up, so he lost to Ishii, and then Ishii got injured. So Clark Connors got the match anyway. Maybe he's American, maybe, but it was just the way that they built the tournament and the way that they were talking about, like, great wrestlers from all over the world, if you remember that vignette when they announced it. I didn't think Americans could challenge for the belt. I think even if they can, that shouldn't be where they go. Okay, if they want Hangman to challenge for a title, you'd have to get him in the TNT title picture. Problem with that is, you're not going to take the belt off Wardlow and put it on Hangman. So Hangman's kind of pissing up a rope at the moment. He's got no real way to go. He's not going to get the world title. He's not going to get the TNT. And I don't see him winning the All Atlantic either.
I think they really have to look into his long-term picture as well and just see what they do with him. But it's a shame because he's actually really good in the ring. It's just I think it's similar to like a few champions. Like we've said it before about great world champions. Like the first title, they always remember how bad it is when the second reign tells it. Like Ric Flair always said he hated his first title reign, but he felt like a real world champion when he won his second ever world championship. I think Hangman would feel like a real world champion if he won it a second time. I think he'd realise a little bit more about where he went wrong as a champion. Like he wasn't getting over well with the crowd as a champion.
That's also not entirely his fault. I mean,
no, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. I think he would.
Was it the week after he won it, or was it a few weeks later? He had a match It was a world title match. It was billed, and it was against Dante Martin.
A couple of weeks later, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, well, why is that happening? You know, like, this doesn't get your champ over.
They should have booked it right after the title win. It should have been building on from him beating Kenny Omega. It should have been Page versus Cole. But we've already spoken about it before. Cole's momentum died after he faced Orange Cassidy. Like,
so many missteps. It's almost impressive how badly they've booked everyone who could have been a credible challenger. Like, no wonder Adam Page had no one and they just had to go, I guess CM Punk. Because after they dealt with Danielson, that was it. You know, Danielson and then where are you going to go? Okay, Punk's just feuded with MJF, so you can't go to MJF. He's going to have to get his heat back first. And you're not going to put the belt on MJF. You can't have him feud with Darby Allin, because Darby Allin's a face. You couldn't have him feud with Jungle Boy or Christian or anyone like that. They were all in their own pictures. You were literally left with, it was either Punk going on to the world title, or Hangman would have had mid-carders to fight, rather than having a genuine main event feud. And that's not because of just injuries. That's because Tony Khan can't book.
Exactly. And that's something I've said. Like, he needs somebody like a Jim Cornette. I said it on the first time we spoke about AEW. I really would like to see somebody of that ilk do the booking, because he knows how to book a good top babyface. He knows how to book a top heel, especially champions or not, or just contenders. Like, he's good at that. That's something I would look at. But obviously, back to Punk in relation to this, because it does tie into our comment about our current discussion. It does tie into CM Punk, because obviously Punk's credible champions as well. If Punk somehow, we think Moxley is going over, we think Moxley is going to merge the interim wasted championship with real AEW, but in the event Punk wins, who does Punk go on to next? Because I doubt they're going to give Moxley a rematch. Like, it'll just be one and done, like what happened when Punk done the unification match with Cena in 2011. Like, it'll be one and done. It'll move on to someone else. Like, would they go for somebody else in the Blackpool Club? Would they then go for somebody in the Elite, even though they've split a little bit, and they're like the Undisputed Elite, etc.? Will they put Cole back in there as an option? Although it makes no sense, because it's babyface versus babyface unless you turn Punk heel on Dynamite.
Is Cole still hurt?
I think he might be, yeah.
But
you know he's like that segment with the young Bucks, like, just makes you wonder just how hurt.
What I can see them doing, potentially, when you said other Blackpool Club member, okay, so we're not doing Punk Mox at pay-per-view. I could see them doing Punk versus Claudio.
At Full Gear?
No, I mean it all out. Because it's that sort of thing that the AEW could literally just turn around and go, we'll do that now. You know, the planning just isn't there. And if the planning is there, the main event you have built up is Punk versus Moxley. And your fan base want to see that. It's almost like they're so afraid of what the TV ratings are going to be in the lead up to All Out that they need to do the title match now.
Yeah.
So, and you can't do Punk Danielson, A, off of less than 2 weeks build, B, because Danielson's just shown he's on the same level as Daniel Garcia. So that isn't going to work. You can't do Jericho, because Jericho's probably going to fight Danielson. So that takes him out. You can't do Kenny Omega, because he's just come back into this trios tournament thing.
Exactly.
You can't do Hangman again, because, I mean, is that where they're going? Are they going back to Hangman?
It makes me wonder. It does make me wonder. Shall I give a follow? Hope you're doing well. There's so many ways behind it. It's so confusing, and that's my problem. Like AEW are getting it wrong. Whereas I mentioned it last week, just how good Impact has been since January. Impact's solid, completely solid with booking, completely solid with organization. who they've got credible challenger after challenger after challenger. WWE are doing that slightly, although WWE for the past couple of months have been quite weak. They're now building things up a little bit better. AEW
That'll
don't
all
have
be
that now.
fine. That'll all be fine when the Scottish Warrior saves us all. But that's for next week.
That's very true. That's very true.
Leader of the Liv Morgan hive. Is that a real thing? Is she saying she has a hive?
It's like a group.
I'm not.
It's like a group
Yeah.
chat. Like Liv. All I'm gonna say is like she's a
right.
champion that needs to. All I'm gonna say is she's a champion that needs to turn things around because she's been booked weak. And before,
It
like,
always happens. I'm starting to think that just people can't book babyface champions unless they get injured. Really, because every company's had an awful record. You could argue that Jon Moxley's the best babyface champion we've seen in a few years. Just because he's an actual babyface who's been booked to look strong. Okay, I absolutely hate his matches, but he's been booked to look strong. He's fought mostly credible people. As far as AEW goes, I'm not counting GCW or any of the other fake companies that don't. They disguise brutality with wrestling, and that's what GCW etc. do. But I mean, AEW, he bleeds every time he has a match, but he's had good matches with Wheeler Yuta. The match against Jericho was better than it had any right to be. His match against Punk, we know, will be good. Like, at least as far as the standards go, because even though Jon Moxley has poor matches, he can at least work. He's not self-trained, sort of indie, can't sort of shoot anything, can't punch, can't do this, can't do that. So Moxley's quite possibly the most credible babyface champion we've seen for the past few years. And
no, you're right.
That just shows, because Big E, when he was on a run, he got injured. And every other one just gets beat after beating some mid-carders. Look at Brew, look at Hangman, look at Moxley the first time, No,
I agree with you, and it does tie into this about booking. And Shavaya's right, is why didn't they do it all? Does it mean Punk's leaving? There is a very good chance. There is a very good chance that he actually does leave if he doesn't get his own way. The way things are going, comments-wise, that the Punk division, it's clearly alluded to the fact that he is clearly not interested anymore. Clearly not. Whether his heart's still in being a professional wrestler or if he just wants to go somewhere else, by all means. But I'm with you. I would rather have had this match continued, like a couple of run-ins, like during Dynamite, like set like feuds and stuff and all that. And
we've not seen what they do yet, and that might be what they do. And they might pull a thing WWE used to do. I mean, the most egregious example was when Seth Rollins was fighting Kofi the night after Kofi Mania, and it was winner take all. And they got like 10, 15 minutes into the match, and then the bar interrupted it.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. It does make you wonder what they will.
So, will they do something like that?
Yeah.
It's very possible.
On the back of that, though, this is something I'd like to ask you hypothetically before we move on, because we are going to move on to classic feuds for the next 15 minutes, which is good. But our classic feuds, we'll see who wins the conversation. We'll put it to the live chat. But what I was going to ask you is, on the back of this briefly, if in the event CM Punk does win on Dynamite, he does win the world title, position of strength or position of weakness for AEW?
So if Punk wins it back, are AEW in a weaker or stronger position?
What do you think, Ken?
Well, depends what you mean by position. Are they in a stronger position than CM Punk? No. Because if Punk gets that belt back, he can hold the company hostage. And Punk strikes me as the kind of guy who would be prepared to do that. Now, from a, kayfabe standpoint, I don't know. I don't know what the better option is, because if they actually do have this match and Punk versus Mox isn't the plan at All Out, which is what's being reported, it's been reported that is not where they're going for All Out.
Yeah.
Then whoever's champion, it still won't make sense, because they won't have a feud ready for All Out. I think I would rather see Punk be the champion. I would fully understand why AEW wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm on the same banking as you. I mean, I like Punk as champion, but then we said before, he has all that control. And if somebody's bringing your product down, lambasting certain people within the company that he works with that they're trying to build around, if he's lambasting them left, right, and centre, it puts him in an even bigger position of strength where he could have a real impact on their future. He could have a real impact, and that's why I think the best decision on Dynamite is put Moxley as world champion. But I would like to see CM Punk just be world champion, because he's just like Moxley. He's really good in the ring. He's really good in the mic. I just want it to be where it's a position of it's a position of strength, not a position of weakness. And I'd like for him to be champion because he actually does elevate talent. Like Bryan Danielson right now, also Daniel Garcia, but crappy feud, but he elevates. Moxley elevates. Kenny Omega, for all his gymnastics, still a quality in the ring. He elevates. Hangman Page, to a degree, can elevate you. Wardlow's elevating people right now. Chris Jericho's elevating Eddie Kingston. But CM Punk elevates anybody, whether it be a giant or like somebody of his like height to mid range. Like, he does that. He does that extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, it's because in the ring he's a professional. Outside the ring, he appears to be quite amateur and childish or self-centered and egotistical. We don't know what side it comes from. Mm-hmm. I think Punk's more vindictive than childish. I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he has a little bit of a narcissistic part to him as well. I think bit of both, bit of vindication and narcissism. Bit of both. But we are going to move on because we've spoken about Senior Punk. We are going to talk about my favourite feud. We're going to talk about Ailey's favourite feud. Then we're going to do the quiz. But we're just going to try and see if we can come to maybe a little bit of an agreement of what we think his overall best feud is. I've had maybe one or two in my head. I assume, Ailey, you've got one or two in your head, but
I've got three, and because I'm a
go from one to
not so privy to Ring of Honor.
True,
so they are all WWE.
Absolutely. So let's go from descending order. So we'll go from number one down. What's your top three? And I'll do my top three, and we'll see if we cross paths.
I imagine we will cross paths. So it's picking them out. Punk was never my favorite, but these matches, when I then look back on them and these feuds, I was then like, all right, yeah, I get that. I didn't actually get the rage of CM Punk. I think I've said on the channel before that I was very much in the Cena camp, but most children were. Most children were in Cena's camp and just sort of were so used to seeing him win all the time that you're like, yeah, go on, Cena. He was superhero. Super Cena. That feud is here, but I think I'm not placing it number one. I'm not placing it number two either, though.
Oh, okay.
So the number three feud, I'm going to say, is Punk Jericho.
All right.
Again, Chris Jericho was one of those guys. He was always there for me, but I was never like, I need to see what Chris Jericho's doing. Obviously, he had his moments, but those two, obviously a really good match and a really nice story. What I will say about the Punk Jericho feud almost gets reflected in another feud that I'll mention. Number two, you have to mention John Cena. You have to. Because that's WWE just felt really surreal, and especially if you were a child at that point, and you were watching it, you were like, CM Punk just left with the title. Where's Cena gonna go? You know?
Yeah.
And it was one of those things you genuinely thought Cena was retiring. You were like, well, superhero's going to go away. And Cena never really went away until we got older, the magic died, and he left. And the number one feud I'm going to say is Jeff Hardy, because it's got to be. And that thing I was mentioning between the Jericho feud and the Hardy feud, obviously CM Punk, a lot of CM Punk's greatest moments in his feuds have been when he's brought up real life problems and specifically dependency problems. It's why I wanted CM Punk to turn heel by cutting a promo on Jon Moxley going to rehab, but clearly we're not doing that anymore, because this is a place where we all have fun rather than create a genuinely hated heel world champion, which Punk could easily be. But it was all this stuff to do with like dependency. I mean, you remember from the Jericho feud, like Jericho throwing the alcohol on Punk. You remember, and this was before when Jeff Hardy had a feud with Sheamus and he had to piss on television. Because TV used to be better than that. But obviously, you look at Punk and Jeff Hardy, WWE wanted to get behind that. It's like, this is the main thing. This is what people like. And it was two guys that a lot of people really wanted to see. And I mean, Jeff Hardy was sort of in that same camp as John Cena, where every child was like, I'm on Jeff Hardy's side. So again, CM Punk was always just the heel, but he did it so well. So that's where my top three would go. Jericho, Cena, and then number one, Jeff Hardy. What about you?
Fun fact as well, 2008, Jeff Hardy was at one point outselling John Cena on merchandise sales.
Yeah, because he was crazy over. But what are your top three? I imagine you'll be a little bit more creative.
Well, funnily enough, actually, my number one's actually the exact same. Jeff Hardy versus CM Punk is actually number one.
It has to be, yeah.
Yeah, for the exact reason. It's because of the addiction to his alcohol. His exuberant lifestyle doesn't match up to CM Punk's like straight edge lifestyle where he doesn't touch drugs, doesn't touch alcohol. It's not an over exuberant lifestyle. It's all about his addiction is wrestling. Whereas Jeff Hardy's addiction to letting himself down, letting people down around him, and it built up a really good feud, and it got a lot of good heat. Number two for me is his, because obviously you mentioned Ring of Honor. Number two for me personally is CM Punk versus Samoa Joe. The Ring of Honor feud was absolutely fantastic. Samoa Joe was coming into his own before he would go to Impact. Obviously, before he began his big, massive unbeaten before he got, embarrassed by Kurt Angle, naturally. Although it was a very good match, Genesis 2006. I do recommend giving that a watch. But they had very classic like Iron Man matches. They had matches that went the duration. Like they had a 60-minute draw. They done a 90-minute match. And think of a guy like Samoa Joe's for going 90 minutes with a guy like CM Punk, who was Ring of Honor's top guy, who was doing everything behind the scenes. He was actually helping with booking. He wasn't booking himself strongly. He was just helping booking. He was running shows. He was doing camera work. He was helping build the rings. He was doing all of this whilst he was actually wrestling full time. I think that's someone who was committed to his craft at the time. And obviously, it gave Joe the confidence to go to Impact, where he had 3 or 4 years where he was one of the best in the business, let alone the best in Impact. Before obviously he joined Main Event Mafia, and he just completely dipped off completely, and he became Samosa Joe, as a few people actually refer to him to, which is actually really funny. My third feud is a little bit different. It's actually a little bit different because it's relevant. Number 3 for me is actually Cena versus. It's not Cena versus Punk. It's actually, even though it only lasted until Elimination Chamber, it was really important for what it reflected. My third favorite Punk feud is actually Punk versus Rock.
Yeah. See, very memorable. For me, it was that length thing. It was like, well, I mean, yeah, it was good, but for me, just not standout good. But I understand that.
But the Punk feud with Cena was phenomenal. The match quality was great. Getting to see two pile drivers in the same match when it was band is fantastic. But it's what the Rock feud did for Punk. It elevated him to get into to become the top heel that he actually wanted to become. It elevated him into the mold where he can be the guy who does shows every single week, where he's berating legends like Bret Hart, he's berating Jerry Lawler, he's berating Cena for having the worst year of his career. He's berating Ryback because he's just another overrated Goldberg. But he's also elevating baby faces really well. He's elevating stars to hopefully take his mantle. But then he's going up against the guy who, for the best part of 3 or 4 years, main event WrestleMania after WrestleMania after WrestleMania, held WWE down because in a way that he was actually good enough. And that was The Rock. Fast forward to 2013, The Rock hasn't been world champion since Vengeance 2002 when he won the title and he lost it at SummerSlam. But he's built himself up in such a mantra where the fans are so far behind him that it's complete anti-Punk. It's complete opposite. It's man against the machine, whereas man who built the machine. What do you go? And Punk's got himself elevated to the point where it doesn't matter what happens, I'm going out to the Royal Rumble and I am going to kick the living crap out of him. Obviously, he would then lose, but it made Punk a bit more bitchy. It got a bit of a bitch feud. That's what I liked about it. Punk got very bitchy after he lost. He still declared himself as the champion in the Elimination Chamber, even though he wasn't. The Rock was champion, fighting to reclaim his title belt, and obviously it led to the great WrestleMania feud with The Undertaker. So that's purely why that is important to me. That's why it's my third favorite feud, because it doesn't just build a good short-time feud. It builds a good feud that then leads to him taking time off to come back to go up against Jericho. Each feud in that period from January to July all stem from The Rock challenging him to do better. And that's why it's my third favorite feud, not Cena. I would have Cena as fourth.
Fair enough. I understand the Rock thing. It's interesting based on his recent behaviour, though. Because now you can look at it for sure and say, well, that whole thing with The Rock, CM Punk feeling like The Rock was taking his spotlight. Before we were like, yeah, I mean, who's this Rock guy anyway? For a lot of people, like, why is The Rock coming back and stopping CM Punk? Now, when you look back on it, especially what you know about Punk now, you're like, Punk's a dick. Like, you just sort of thinking like that.
He's proved he's a hypocrite once and for all. And it's just like anybody else who moaned about losing their spot. Punk's another one. He doesn't want to lose his spot. I understand that. He's been in the business.
He lost his spot. He left his spot for 7 years.
Exactly, and he's come back feeling entitled.
Yeah. Did Edge come back and feel entitled?
No, he came back and worked his way through it.
Edge was thankful. Edge didn't think he'd get to do that again.
Whereas Punk thinks,
Punk's always been able to come back. And the problem is that the fans fed Punk. And the fans were always like, we want CM Punk, we want CM Punk. He did become the voice for the voiceless, but only after he'd left. You can't. A voice of the voiceless is no use if he too doesn't use his voice. Because all he did when he left was derail WWE. Because whenever the fans saw something they didn't want, they turned and it was CM Punk. And it was CM Punk, and they would just chant it and chant it and chant it. And people worked themselves into such a frenzy about when CM Punk going to come back. Are we going to see the return of CM Punk? When he does return, there was no way his AEW run would live up to the hype that people want it to. Because in your head, he can do anything, and physically, he can't. So I think CM Punk's caused a huge problem in the wrestling business. And for him to act the way that he does, doubles down on that. Because these fans love him, and he doesn't give a flying one about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We're coming into the last 50 minutes of the show. Obviously, we are going to get into the quiz. We're going to talk about classic feuds maybe next week when we preview Clash. But I'm going to say this right now. For anyone that wants to know, The Rock is my favourite of all time. But my favourite feud isn't actually a Rock feud. My favourite feud is actually Mankind versus The Undertaker.
Very, very good choice.
And the reason is not because of Hell in a Cell, which is an amazing match anyway. My favourite match out of them all is actually the Boiler Room Brawl at SummerSlam 96. That's my favourite of the entire feud. It stems from that because it took them both to a completely new level, and it's on the back of it. But right here, before we go to the quiz, actually, because obviously I'll be going into full screen, so in a few moments. But this here is actually the most perfect comment that we've actually been speaking about once it comes to screen. I like CM Punk leaving the industry for 7 years and coming back and acting like you're entitled. The main event spot and to be the face of a company is wrong and comes across as selfish.
But it shows as well that he didn't have, as much as he whines and gripes, he didn't have the same obstacle that Edge did, or that Page does, or that Bryan did. You know, you will never wrestle again. They come out, they do the retirement speeches, you know, and everyone sort of gives Paige cracks, like, oh, she was a diva, and oh, this, oh, that. Watch that retirement moment. She is genuinely heartbroken. When Punk left, Punk wasn't heartbroken. Punk was done. Punk was like, you'll miss me more than I miss you. And that's why, and MJF was right. He wouldn't have left for 7 years if he truly loved you. And that's where Punk was.
Yeah, in all honesty, I've always liked CM Punk. See, when he actually did leave, it didn't bother me.
No,
I wasn't phased. There was Seth Rollins came in. Seth Rollins, he captured my heart for pro wrestling anyway. And I had New Japan, I had Impact, so I was still watching Okada, Omega, and then the Motor City Machine Guns. Like I still had all this. It didn't really faze me at all. Yeah. But the sheer cheek of the man, like to think he was the top drawn wrestler, and in fact, Bryan Danielson will always be bigger than CM Punk.
Oh, well, in terms of wrestling, in terms of actually being a wrestler, no doubt. Yeah. But because people weren't chanting Danielson, every time they hated something, it was CM Punk, and he wasn't going to come. And he wanted people to do that. Then when finally the opportunity comes for a huge bag of money, he'll take it because he doesn't care about the fans at all. And I think now we're really seeing it. And when he leaves AEW, I don't think he's got a spot going back to WWE, and he won't go anywhere else. So CM Punk will just be done.
Wouldn't surprise me if he tries to get Ring of Honor or go to Impact, but
Ring of Honor and still be in the same group as Tony Khan, who he's apparently making life difficult for. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't get it.
I agree. And Impact don't need him anyway because they've got Josh Alexander and they've got some really good talent in there as well, including Honor No More and Bullet Club being done properly. But of course, we are going to switch cameras as we do. So I'm just going to do that. Because of course, I'm in full screen. The Quizmaster, it's over to you.
So you've arrived dressed like a loser today. That's cool.
Oh, that is criminal.
Nah, I'm just playing with you. Just joking. I know that sort of thing isn't
you can get
loved on this channel.
Absolutely. You can get the banter and you can get all that in. But of course, it's over to you, the resident Quizmaster. It used to be me, but I thought, no, I feel like getting quizzed. So I'll do a quiz at some point. But for now, it's over to you, Ailey. I'm in full screen. The live chat's all yours as well. Go for it. Explain the rules of your quiz for today.
Well, the rules of today's quiz is you've got to do it while you're constantly in a handstand.
Yeah, I'm 6'3" and I've got like barely anything in your terms, so that's never happening.
Part of me was really hoping you would go along with that. No, it's fine. We've got 5 questions today. The multi-marker is back, as well as one where I will name the match cards.
I think she'll be back. 1 minute. Let me just get her back. I think she had a little drop there. Come on, you piece of crap. Come on. My laptop is so freaking slow. I think it's not her fault. I think she's there. It is. She's back.
Honestly, couldn't tell you what was going on, but it was a good cliffhanger, wasn't it? So, Mazda just didn't come back. The quiz is vanished. We'd have to do an angle next week where I was like in the Undertaker's car or something. But I will read the questions out, and then I will give you lovely people in the comments a chance to answer those questions. I'm not going to read out your answers before Reese gives me his, but feel free to comment your own answers, and yeah, we will just have a good time with this one. So, question number 1. In which year and in which match type did Sheamus win his first WWE Championship? So, man, we were talking about, obviously pertinent to Friday Night SmackDown this week, and the match has been announced.
TLC 2009 tables match. He pushed Cena off the top turnbuckle.
Oh, you've even named a specific pay-per-view. So that angle's that sort of shot is clearly something in your head. But is it just in your head?
Really, I enjoyed it. It was a very good match. It was a very good match, actually.
Well, Andrew Williams has said, who's going to start me off by claiming CM Punk's not the best promo in wrestling? I don't think I said that, but he also isn't. So, not right now. MJF's got him beat. MJF's the best promo. Just fight me. Fight me. Tell you what, Andrew, fight me.
I'm in full screen. I'm letting you fight. I'm answering this question.
So, Reese said 2009 tables match
at TLC because Extreme Rules was the one, obviously the ladder match for the world. So you can't have Extreme Rules and TLC in the same month. So
now,
yes,
Gerard and Andrew have both said 2008 tables match.
He was ECW in 2008.
You say he was in ECW in 2008. Well,
he was with Evan Bourne.
So you're both. So everyone's right on tables match. We have a dispute over the year. Just to show I'm not just to prove I'm not favouring anyone. I've got the event up here.
And the reason it's 2009 is because I'm pretty sure at the Royal Rumble he faced Randy Orton for the WWE title in 2010. I'm pretty sure it's Randy Orton versus Sheamus. And then he lost in the Elimination Chamber a month later. So yeah, TLC 2009.
I'm sorry, comment. Reese has got you beat. 2009 in a tables match. It was indeed at TLC, so you do remember it very well. Do you remember the days where a world title would just change hands on TLC? Didn't have to be one of the big four. It was nice. It was simpler times.
Very long time ago.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the last time it changed on a not big four was the Elimination Chamber, I imagine.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
I think so. So you are technically 2 for 2 if I give you 1 for each bit of information. So I'll do that.
Very
okay.
Well.
If you're ready, comments. If you're ready, Reese. Question number 2. Who had the shortest reign as the European champion?
Ooh, shortest reign as European champion.
Yeah, the shortest reign as European champion. Andrew Williams, I still win because I love CM Punk, and that's fair enough, and you can love him, and I'm not saying that you're a worse person for liking who you like, you know. I've said on this channel before that I was a big fan of Chris Benoit. I know not everyone agrees with that, and it's absolutely fine, and obviously the reasons there are totally different. We're not going to go into them. But if you like CM Punk, I don't hate you as a person. but I just don't like CM Punk. I think he's got a very superior attitude, and I think he sort of formed a cult in the fans. You know, he has his own cult of personality, as things were.
Yeah.
But is your question the shortest reign?
There's two people I can think of, actually, funnily enough. But I'm going to take a punt on it. I'm going to say, I might be wrong, but it's only because obviously they did eventually get rid of the title shortly after. I'm going to say Jeff Hardy.
Right, okay. Jeff Hardy.
Because he's one of the few that I'm thinking of. And obviously they did unify the titles with him and RVD, so I'm thinking, and he's got a habit of losing the RVD unification matches. So that's where I was thinking. I'm thinking Jeff Hardy, but I might be wrong.
Okay, just waiting for any sort of comment to come through. So Gerard has said Steve Blackman, which is, I mean, it is a guess, absolutely. And Andrew Owens said Jeff Jarrett.
Another good guess.
And you said Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
So we've got two Jeffs.
Yeah, he had a few title reigns in 2002 with that European title. He beat William Regal, and obviously, but then he did lose in a unification. I don't think it lasted that long. That's what I was thinking about. Another person I was thinking of, it's not a guess, but another person I thought of was actually Dallas Page. That's not my official guess. My official guess is Jeff Hardy, but Dallas Page was another one on my mind.
Right. The answer, you're unfortunately wrong, but so is everyone in the comments too.
Okay. Who was the shortest?
Because according to Wikipedia, the source of all reliable information, it was Rob Van Dam. And his reign with the belt lasted 5 minutes.
Okay. Who beat him then? Wait, hold on. Was that title reign 2002?
I believe so, yeah.
So that was the unification. That must have been a unification match. I wonder, because Rob Van Dam holding the title for 5 minutes is so funny. I mean, I know he was all up in smoke and stuff at the time, but still, like 5 minutes on RVD is a bit crazy considering how over
5
he
minutes.
was.
Let's see.
That's very interesting.
Let's see.
I wonder who beat him. Unless that is where they retired the European title to then merge it with the IC title, and then eventually they bend the IC title in No Mercy because they're flaming idiots.
I'm just gonna get it up on in front of me here in case there's been some kind of mistake.
No, go ahead, bring it up.
Short strain, Rob Van Dam, 5 minutes. So Wikipedia have
interesting.
Got you there.
I'll look up that.
When did they get rid of the European title?
2002.
2002, yeah. So I think you were right in the fact that the final champion was Rob Van Dam, and therefore 5 minutes later they've ended it.
Yeah.
So it's much like in the same way that Ezekiel Jackson has the shortest ECW reign ever.
Because he's the last one, yeah.
Won it, lost it. So a way to think about that, a little bit of a sneaky one, but you know.
They also had that in the same year. They had the European title and the Hardcore title was merged together, and then eventually they binned the European title for the IC title, and obviously they would then go and bin that for 9 months because it was absolutely embarrassing.
The question from Andrew is who held it longest. He says Triple H. The answer was the British Bulldog.
Naturally.
Yeah.
His second reign was the longest, wasn't it?
Longest reign 206 days. It says here.
Try to think, because that couldn't have would that have been 97? If that was his first reign in 97, then that would make a lot of sense because he didn't really defend it as much, and then he stupidly lost it at, in England as well. I mean, as much as I like the fact the Bulldog got beat, I don't think he should have lost to Shawn Michaels. But obviously, Grand Slam champion, it was going to happen anyway. So
yeah, it's Shawn Michaels, you know. If he didn't win, he would lose his smile again. But moving on then. So unfortunately, no mark there. You could call it a little bit tricky, that one, but let's see if you get this. So this is read the match card, everyone's favorite, sometimes recurring question. I'm going to read out match card, match by match. Comments, feel free to get involved at any point. Would have guessed D'Lo Brown as longest reigning European champion. Yeah. And D'Lo Brown.
A good guess,
D'Lo Brown quite underrated as well. And it was in front of Bulldog's family in England, part of the beef with Brett and Sean. Yeah, because Sean could just go, well, I want that. Because if not, I'm going home. Much like the guy we were talking about today. What a shock. Anyway, so, yeah, on to today's match card.
And of course, Ailey will explain the amount of points you can get for getting the match card as well. So.
Yeah, so I read a match card out match by match, and the number of points available determines how many matches is determined by how many matches are on the card. This was an 8-match card, so you can get a maximum of 7 marks. You don't just get to answer once, but you do just get to answer once in between each match. So if I read the first match, Reese was to have a guess and it would be wrong, he can't just keep throwing show names at it. I will then read the next match.
Yes.
So this is an 8-match card. I will read the first match and then give Reese and the comments a chance to tell me what show it's from. Reese may ask me to move on, at which point I will read the next match. Now, if you get it after the first match, you will get 7 points. After the second match, you will get 6. After the third, you will get 5, so on and so forth. The minimum number of points you can get is 1 point, which is before I read the main event. If I get all the way to the main event and you get it after that, it's half a point.
I am ready
because main events are fairly memorable.
Very true. I am ready for the multi-marker. I am ready.
You're ready for the high, as the Wombats would say. Gotta love the Wombats. So, question number 1. Shelton Benjamin defeated R-Truth.
Was it a title match or just a singles match? Just to be specific.
It was for the United States Championship.
Let's see. So that would have been the gold standard era. Okay. R-Truth didn't come back until I think it was 2008-ish. I think it was 2008 he came back, built really well, actually. He was built really well when he returned. I'm going to take first guess. I'm going to say US titles. I need to be thinking about. I need to be really careful. I'll say Shelton, but I can't say that one because he was actually in the. I was going to say Unforgiven, but that's wrong because he was in the Championship Scramble and he was a US champion at that point. I'm going to say No Mercy 2008 as my first guess.
That is a no on Unforgiven. Sorry, on what would you say? Sorry,
No Mercy. No Mercy.
No Mercy. You mentioned the two, but it was like you said it wasn't Unforgiven. So no on No Mercy 2008.
Yeah.
So I will now move on to the next match. We didn't get a comment there, so either the commenters are just letting you handle this one on your own, or they don't have an idea yet. So the next match, Rey Mysterio defeated Kane.
The Bash 2008.
The Bash 2008. Incorrect.
That's what I was thinking of because they had a good feud in 2008.
Match number 3 then. This will be for 5 points if you get it after this one.
Okay.
Matt Hardy defeated Evan Bourne, and this was an ECW championship match. Andrew Williams has put something, and I'm not going to comment on it yet. So Matt Hardy defeated Evan Bourne, ECW Championship. Match 3 on the card.
There's one other pay-per-view I'm thinking. I'll just go for it. Armageddon 2008.
Nope. Unfortunately, not Armageddon. Jared Kennedy in with the same answer as Andrew. Reese is on the full screen, so I won't say what the commenters have said, and I won't pull it up, but you two are both correct. So let's see if Reese can get it.
There's only one other pay-per-view I can think of. That.
So I have to read the next match now. This will be for 4 points, Reese.
Go ahead.
John Morrison and The Miz defeated Crime Time, the team of JTG and the late Shad Gaspard, in a tag team match.
What other crappy pay-per-views was there? Because Matt Hardy was an ECW champion until the championship scramble in 2008. That was Unforgiven. So it can't be Unforgiven. No Mercy follows that every year. Armageddon's in December. Could it be Survivor Series?
Remember, you don't have to throw a guess out every time. You can just ask me to move on.
Yeah, not going to happen. What other pay-per-views were in 2008? Might be this one. I'll go Cyber Sunday. The last Cyber Sunday, 2008. Cyber Sunday.
Cyber Sunday 2008. I said we could move on without you guessing a show. You said not happening. You've said Cyber Sunday 2008. The comments have said Cyber Sunday 2008. Reese, you're right.
Oh, fucking hell.
Cyber Sunday 2008. So Shelton Benjamin defeated R-Truth. Rey Mysterio defeated Kane. Matt Hardy defeated Evan Bourne, ECW title. Fun little caveat. Rey Mysterio defeated Kane. It was a no-holds-barred match.
Batista beat Jericho for the world.
So John Morrison and The Miz defeated Crime Time. How's this for a result? The Honky Tonk Man defeated Santino Marella for the IC title.
And then immediately lost it back to him.
Yes. We had The Undertaker defeat Big Show by knockout in the Last Man Standing match. Triple H defeated Jeff Hardy. And Batista defeated Chris Jericho for the World Heavyweight title. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the special guest referee.
Yeah. So,
Reese, you get 4 points on that one.
Sweet. Pretty sure Randy Orton tried to get involved in that match as well, I think. As one of the referees, I think he tried. But yeah, so I'll take 4. I'll take 4.
Yeah, 4 out of 7. Not bad. Not bad at all.
It's on my mind. Cyber Sunday was on my mind just because it was between that and the Bash purely because of Kane versus Rey Mysterio. I should have just waited and I should have just fought a bit more. But I know they had such a good feud in 2008. Right. That's why I thought the Bash. But yeah, I'll take it. 4 points.
Question 4 seems like the sort of thing you'll know. It just does. What was the first match ever to take place on WCW Monday Nitro?
First match, or was it main event? That's the thing I can't remember. I can't remember if it was the main event, but I'm pretty sure it was on the first Nitro because it was on the last one. I'm just going to say Sting versus Ric Flair.
Wrong. That was not the first match.
I think that was the main. I think that must have been the main event then.
Yeah. But the first match, as I check the comments here, Andrew's saying Fulham 2-2. I have no idea who they're playing.
I can't remember who they're playing. I've not really paid attention to the fixtures. It might be Palace. I don't know. Okay, so let's see.
So Gerard Kennedy's in with his answer. His answer's correct. I've not said it yet. Rishi said Sting versus Hogan, and that's not right, I'm afraid.
Sting versus Flair. Yeah.
Sorry, Sting versus Flair.
I'm still
Sting,
wrong.
Hogan.
I wasn't sure if it was main event or first match. I couldn't
So
remember.
not Sting versus Flair. It was Brian Pillman versus Jushin Thunder Liger.
I would never have remembered that.
How's that for a first match? You know, get people welcome. Welcome Nitro. Welcome WCW. Bang. You know.
Yeah.
Two very exciting wrestlers in their day.
That's a great one. That's a great one, actually.
No, Gerard, you were right. The first ever Nitro was the question. So the match on the first night of Nitro, the first match. So the first match in the history of the show.
I watched that first episode of Nitro. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah, it's one of few Nitro episodes I've actually watched, and that match is good. And Jushin Liger and his pomp is fantastic.
Yeah.
So now we move on to the multi-marker. Let's try and get out of here before an hour and a half, Reese, but we all know how you like to treat your multi-markers. My multi-marker today, we've spoken before about tag matches. We've spoken before about Money in the Bank participants. Today goes along that same line. I want to know every quarter finalist. So 8 answers here. From the 2002 King of the Ring tournament. 8 names. And comments, you can go crazy on this one. Saying the last Nitro had Sting versus Flair. Yeah.
Brock Lesnar.
Pillman was criminally underrated, says Gerard. Yeah, Pillman was. I mean, talk about, sort of a good thing going too soon, Brian Pillman.
Brock Lesnar.
So, Brock Lesnar.
Rob Van Dam, because that was the final. Let's see, King of the Ring. Was he involved? I'll say Edge. He was the previous King of the Ring, so I think he may have been in it just to try and go back to back.
Okay, I need 5 more names from you.
I can effectively name 2 out, ruled out. I can name 2 because they were in the main event. So I'm ruling out Triple H. I'm ruling out Undertaker because that was main event. The Rock returned to interfere in the main event, so I'll rule The Rock out. It wasn't Steve Austin because he was up against Big Show and Ric Flair in a handicap match. I'll put Christian as a potential 4th guess. Yeah, I'll put Christian as a guess.
You want me to put Christian down, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Just because of how things were at the time, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll try. Wait, was he? No, he made him tap it. I'll say 2 random crazy ones. I'll say Hulk Hogan and Kurt Angle.
You want me to put both of them down, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Chris Benoit. And last one.
You could remember the finalists so well, but can you remember who the finalists beat to make the final?
My last guess, I'll put Chris Jericho. I couldn't remember the rest. I'm just going to put a random one from the peak period of that. I know Kurt Angle made Hollywood Hulk Hogan tap out. I think that was King of the Ring, but I wasn't sure if that was a King of the Ring match. But obviously, I do remember the main event really well because it was actually a very impressive match by Lesnar. And obviously, the catching F5 on RVD was fantastic. And the leopard print singlet, of course, I won't forget that. It was actually really cool. So those are my guesses. I've hardly got any of them right, but I know for a fact I've got the first two right easily. But go for it.
Well, you would be wrong because Brock Lesnar obviously wasn't in the tournament that he won. Yeah, no. So Brock Lesnar, obviously correct. Mr. King of the Ring, 2002. I mean, he was meant to come out with a crown, then he just ate it. RVD was the man that was defeated in the final, which sounds like a weird match today, but back when they could both move, it was pretty good.
And he was IC champion as well.
He was.
And he went up against Lesnar at Vengeance as well for the IC title, and he got himself disqualified.
Which is a smart way to deal with fighting a bear.
Oh,
so, Gerard Kennedy said it was a hard question, that. And it is a little cruel. I was going to go for a more recent King of the Ring, but I was honestly like, nah, there's not that many deep cuts there, really. I mean, maybe another time we'll discuss a more recent King of the Ring.
Yeah.
You said Chris Jericho.
Just because of what he was at in 2008, he was absolutely brilliant. I'm not sure if he was involved or not.
Jericho's correct.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank God.
The unfortunate thing for you is that's where it'll end. You got 3 out of 8 of them, because then your guesses, your fairly educated guesses of Edge, Christian, Hulk Hogan, Kurt Angle, and Chris Benoit, they were all around at the time. It was very possible.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not right. Before I reveal the right answers, if I jump to the comments, we see William Regal, not there. Eddie Guerrero, not there. Hurricane wasn't there. Andrew Williams said X-Pac, which was there. So X-Pac is right. Lesnar beat RVD. But Andrew Williams asking how many you got. I believe you got 3 of them.
Yeah, I got 3.
So you've matched Reese. And Gerard Kennedy's haven't a clue. I mean, to be fair, had I not had to research it for the quiz, I wouldn't know either. And I probably would have got the 3 that Reese has, because, the rest of these are a little deeper. So the 5 that you didn't get. So Chris Jericho was in the first round against the Big Valboski, otherwise known as Val Venus.
Yeah.
Also in that quarterfinal, in the last 8 of the tournament, you had Test and Hardcore Holly.
Shite.
And you also had Booker T. And X-Pac. So that was a guess that was in the comments from Andrew Williams, X-Pac, which was correct. So the 8 were Chris Jericho, Val Venus, or the Big Valboski, Test, Hardcore Holly, Brock Lesnar, Booker T, RVD, and X-Pac.
Not a bad lineup, apart from Val Venus, Test, and Hardcore Holly.
Not a bad lineup, except for 3 of the 8 of them.
Exactly. Absolutely. Guys, We are going to wrap up here. Obviously, thank you to my co-host for a great show. Thank you all for watching. If you can hit like, share, and subscribe button. We are back next Saturday for the last Saturday show, by the way. Not for a long time. It's just because obviously me and Ailey will be at the castle for the following week. So we will do maybe a midweek show. Maybe the Thursday we might just do a 1 hour quiz. We might just do a 1 hour quiz. I'm sure Ailey will come up with some amazing questions for 1 hour, and we'll do it Iron Man style. If anyone wants to get involved, if anyone wants to actually jump on and do the quiz against me, do it. Ailey's got no issue with that. We were prepared for any event like that. We always do. And I took it to Andrew. Regal versus Lesnar should be main event.
Absolutely.
Do agree. Main card at the castle. Main card at the castle, we'll bring that up next week because there's still apparently more matches to be added. But at the moment, you've also got McIntyre versus Reigns. You've got Sheamus versus Gunther for the IC title. You have the women's 6-man tag. You've got the US title match. We've got that so far.
Was the US title match announced?
Obviously, we've got the. I'm not sure it's been announced yet, but obviously that is still. I think that's one still announced, but that's a few of them.
Right. Yeah.
To this way, we'll reveal the full match next week. Full match card next week once we have it. But all in all I'm going to say is some matches look underwhelming, some of them look really good. Either way, next Saturday, 3 o'clock, be here, and then it'll probably be the Thursday if Ailey's around, because I know it's my day off.
Should be.
But the following Thursday, obviously, me and Ailey will hopefully be a Clash of the Castle. The following 2 weeks from now, the following Thursday, we will definitely be doing a full Iron Man type quiz, and that's how it's going to be in the Build to Clash, because we want to have a good laugh. Thank you all for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm going to end on this one. Bold claim for the Rumble. Very bold claim. All I'm going to say is...
I wouldn't mind it.
All I'm going to say on this one is don't count your chickens, because you never know. You could have WrestleMania. Scotland versus Ireland. Thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, I'm in Wales. I am going to be at Clash of the Cats. So we're both going. We're both going to the state. We're both going to pay-per-view.
Both going separately.
Class.
We should point out.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. We're both just going.
The higher-ups don't want to fund our adventure, so we're going separately. But yeah, no, it should be great fun.
And who knows, I might meet Undertaker on the Friday. But on the back of that, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks all for watching. We'll see you next Saturday. And simply put, don't hate the player, hate the game. See you later, guys.
It's my life in the box in front of me. Taking talk in my arms is the soul of me.